The Dukes Dice are brought to you by Tasty Minstrel Games, Arcane Wonders, Game Toppers, Bangers and Mash, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy in the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the Gateway City, St. Louis, Missouri, it's the Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board, card, and occasionally role-playing games. Today, the Dukes review SteamRollers from Stronghold Games. They'll also take a look back at the Dukes' review of Blood Bowl in their Dukes Double Take. And finally, they'll talk about 3D printing and board gaming. And now, the Dukes of Dice.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And top of the morning to you, Alex. It's me. What's up?
Okay. Were you in Ireland or were you in...
I was okay. There's a story coming about this.
Oh, that's right. You were. Okay, never mind. But I guess that's the focus. Anyway, this is episode 177, which we're calling Rolling Dice and Printing Games. Thanks to Andrew Mason. He named that over in our Board Game Geek Guild, guild number 2008. I think it's a perfect title, Alex, because we're talking about SteamRollers, an awesome little roll and write game. Oh, am I spoiling stuff when I say that?
No.
Okay. And some 3D printing, so I think that makes sense. And it's a nice little play on words to our good buddies Marty and Tony over at Rolling Dice and Taking Names. Squirrel. All right. So, Alex, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I mentioned on the guild I might be jet lagged by the time this comes around, but I'm actually doing okay. I'm enjoying the delicious, refreshing taste of a blue moon. This podcast brought to you by Blue Moon. I don't know what their slogan is, or else I'd anyway. Yeah.
That's funny because when I went home, by the way, for the first time ever, I'm recording in my office at the law firm.
The law offices of Ramirez and Ramirez.
Yeah. But when I went home briefly, and it's a long story, which I won't go into details, but Raquel made some bad pun about Blue Moon. So that's interesting. I am drinking Clown Shoes Chocolate Sombrero.
Ooh.
Which is a Mexican-style chocolate stout.
That sounds quite tasty.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But you had an interesting time over in the UK, which you're going to talk about in a little bit.
Well, I'm going to talk about it right now, Sean.
Oh, we're just going to jump into games?
Well, no, because there's two parts to this.
Oh,
there's games, right? I played some games at UK Games Expo, sure. But there's also what was interesting about this trip that I was on was the journey there and the journey back were particularly eventful.
There and back again, and Alex's tale?
Sure. Anyway, on the way there, our flight routing was St. Louis, Detroit, Boston, Dublin, Birmingham. In Dublin, we get through customs and immigration, getting ready to go to the next flight, when Shane realizes, Shane's my boss over at Monochromatic Wolf, realizes that he had a checked bag that he had yet to pick up. Okay? That's a problem, because you have to go through customs immigration, reclaim, and do all of that, then recheck it. So we had to go backwards through customs immigration, which the Irish customs officials were very nice to us.
Good.
Then had to clear customs immigration again. So that's 2 times. Keep track of this. This is going to come up as the story goes on.
You just gave me the finger as you were counting with your fingers.
I most certainly know. There's 2 fingers.
No, but then you put one down and you gave me the finger.
No,
go on.
I would never do that.
No, you wouldn't.
We go out to Aer Lingus. We try and recheck the bag. We're told by the machine we can't, so we go to a customer service agent. They direct us to another customer service agent who then tells us to sprint to the gate. We go through security. We get to the gate. We miss the flight.
Ooh.
At a U.S. airport, not too big of a deal. At Dublin Airport, a huge deal because their gate agents can't rebook you on flights. They're not allowed to do ticketing. So we had to clear customs and immigration a 3rd time with the same agent who cleared us the first time, who was like, haven't I seen you guys before?
You guys are smuggling drugs at this point,
right? Clearly. So then we go back, have to get our tickets for the next flight in a few hours, and then re-clear security. So for those keeping track at home, cleared customs immigration 3 times, cleared security twice. Nightmare. Absolute nightmare. On the way back, we actually changed flights while we were in Birmingham, so we spent an extra day in Dublin, which meant I got a tour of the Guinness factory over there, which was really cool. Teeling Whiskey Distillery, hung out on Temple Bar, which is a nice area in Dublin with the Temple Bar itself is really cool, but plenty of awesome pubs. Really cool city. Dublin's amazing. Then, though, we fly back into Detroit, and it's overbooked. And they asked for volunteers, and so a trip where we left the UK Games Expo on Sunday night, we didn't get back to St. Louis until Wednesday, but we each got a $1,000 voucher of some kind for our trouble, which not too bad of a little bonus. So that's where I'm at. I just went back to work today, and hey, guess what, Sean? I'm leaving town on Tuesday for Origins.
The life of a jet-setting board game publishing employee.
Big cardboard, man. Big cardboard.
Yeah.
We're everywhere.
Are you gonna spend that $1,000 on games, Alex?
I am not.
Any of it? You're not gonna buy one game?
So you could have gotten it in three ways. I could have gotten an Amex gift card, had a 6-month expiration, would have come in the mail. I could have gotten an Amazon.com gift card, no expiration, comes in the mail. Or I could have gotten Delta flight voucher. And I went with the Delta flight voucher because I know I'm flying them anyway. I'm flying them to San Francisco twice later this year, at least. So
I was going to say, it's good that you described it as Amazon.com. Otherwise, I think everyone would have been really confused. And by the way, so last night at Dukes of Dice Game Night over at Empire Board Game Library, we all spent a good amount of time making fun of you for Reverse Hanabi.
That's good. Happy to hear it.
So if you're curious what that's about, go listen to the last episode where Alex describes the very novel mechanic of you knowing what's in your hand, but other people not, as Reverse Hanabi.
In a cooperative setting, to be clear.
Sure.
Which was also done by, what is it?
Every other card game ever?
It's a cooperative game. No, because, for instance, you can play open-handed in, say, Pandemic. You can play open-handed in several cooperative games, but there are games where you specifically cannot communicate what's in your hand. And The Grizzled is what I was thinking of, is a game like that.
Okay.
Hey.
Okay.
I don't need your sass.
Fine. That's fine. So, Alex, let's talk about some other board games.
And let's
describe them.
Yeah.
Let's describe them in interesting ways.
Cool.
That are self-evident, I suppose. No. So you know what? We talked about last episode, when we mentioned the various nominees for the Spiel and the Kenner Spiel. We talked about Ganz, Schon, Clever, I think is how you say that. And our buddy Eugene. Eugene's a big fan of importing some of these European titles over, and he had imported this over. Remember, loyal listeners will remember that I ordered this game from Amazon.de months ago, and it got lost. I have since reordered it, and it's hopefully going to be on its way in the next couple weeks. This is a really cool little roll and write game. It is very thinky. It's excellent. So let me tell you about it real quick. Everyone has their own sheet that they're going to be drawing on as part of a roll and write game. And then there are, 6 dice? Dice of different colors, and the active player is going to roll all of them. They are going to select 3 of them, one at a time. So let's say I roll a bunch of these dice, and I decide to take the blue 3. By taking that blue 3, all of the 1s and 2s that I've rolled, I remove from the remaining pool of dice, and those are going to be available for the other players to use. And then I'm going to re-roll the remaining dice. And from those remaining dice, I'm going to choose one of them, again, removing those lower than the die value that I pick. So some interesting choices, because generally speaking, you want high rolls, but if you take an early high number, you're going to be removing a bunch of the different dice in the subsequent roll. So basically, you're winding up with 3 dice as the active player, and then the inactive players get to choose one of those dice that you didn't choose to take their action. So the actions that you're taking, there are different areas they're going to score slightly differently. So like, for example, there's the yellow area, and the yellow is looking for various scores 1 to 6. And if you complete a column, you'll get a bonus. If you points, endgame points. If you complete a row, you'll get a different bonus. With the blue area, you're actually combining the blue die with the white die to get some value between 2 and 12. And the more of those you complete, the more points you're going to get. It's not quite a geometric scoring, but it definitely adds up quickly. And again, when you're completing rows and columns, you're getting some sort of bonus. And then there is, I think, the orange and the purple and the yellow. And basically you're filling them in left to right. But there are some, like one of them, they have to be bigger than the previous one or bigger than a certain number. Or some of them have like a ×2 multipliers. Lots of cool stuff here. And what's really neat is when you fill in certain things, you're getting these bonuses. Maybe it's a reroll. Maybe it's marking off or adding a value to one of these other areas. Or maybe it's the ability to choose an extra die, whether you're the active player or the inactive player. And so you kind of tend to just combo into all of these different things. And if you do it right, you're chaining several of them together. And you're then adding up all the points, and whoever has the most points is the winner. This game was really cool. This is a great little roll and write game. It is, in my mind, it's elevated above a lot of the other ones that are excellent. Like I'm thinking of a game like Quicks or Quinto. I think they're fantastic. This adds some complexity, which I think I'm craving a little bit in this style of game, which we'll talk about a little bit later with SteamRollers, obviously. But I really enjoyed this. And what's interesting to me is it reminded me of Russian railroads, which may sound odd. So Russian railroads is a worker placement game where you're advancing these 3 tracks, but as you make advancement, actually 4 tracks technically, as you advance on these tracks, you're triggering these bonuses and you can chain them one into the other. This kind of scratched that same itch, but on a much less complex and shorter scale. It was really good, and I think I see why it was nominated for the Kenner Spiel. Kenner, right?
Yes. Yeah, it was nominated for the Kenner.
Yeah. And so I think it's a great little nominee for the Kenner Spiel, and I'm eagerly looking forward to my copy coming in. And it's, I mean, off my first play, it's at least a 5. It is really excellent.
Sylvain Lacroix sent me a link to where you can play this online, interestingly enough.
Send me that link, would you?
I will. I will do that post-haste. I don't think it's competitive online play. I think it's just solo play.
That's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. It looks... I will try it on that system so I can at least speak intelligently, especially as we're getting ready to talk about the Spiel and Kenner Spiel results, which... Hey, I might have some more insight on that coming up in a second.
Oh, interesting.
Ooh.
Well, that is Ganz, Schon, Clever, which hopefully is going to have a wider distribution shortly, depending on how it does in the Kenner Spiel.
Nice. Very cool. Well, of course, at the UK Games Expo, I was able to get in some games. Not a ton of games, primarily because I'm there running a booth the entire time, and our hotel was about 15 minutes away by car. And being on the company, if I can get a free Uber or Lyft ride back with my phone not working so well overseas, I kind of needed to stick with Shane. So I didn't play a ton of games, but I did get some time every now and then to poke around the hall and tried a couple of interesting things. So I'm going to talk about, I mentioned I was going to talk about the Spiel, Kenner Spiel. So because I like going out of order and annoying Sean on the show notes, I'm going to talk first about Luxor. Luxor by Queen Games, designed by Rudiger Dorn, one of 3 nominees for the Spiel des Jahres this year, along with The Mind by Wolfgang Warsch, who also did Ganz, Schon, Clever, and Azul, I don't know the designer's name off the top of my head. Michael Kiesling, I think, is one of them. Does that sound right to you, Sean?
I believe so.
Okay. In any case, Luxor is an interesting, I would call it, hand management, set collection, exploration game. What you do on your turn is you're going to play a card from hand. You have a hand of 5 cards. You can either play the furthest left in your hand or the furthest right in your hand. And then after you play that card, you're going to draw a card from the deck and put it in the middle. So you'll have one of the options you had before and another option. These cards will move your Archaeologist, Temple Explorer players forward. So if I play a 5, I can pick one of my adventurers, move them 5 spaces forward, and potentially do what it says. In this game, you can only move forwards, never backwards. You're trying to get your adventurers to the center of the temple to unlock a treasure there, but you don't have to do that to win. You can get points in other ways, through scarabs, through sometimes you need, say, 1 person to collect a treasure for set collection, or sometimes it takes 2 or even 3. You'll get points at the end of the game depending on how far your adventurers are into the cave. And that's the gist of it. There isn't a whole heck of a lot more to it than that. There's certainly, as the game goes on, you can take actions to get upgraded cards, but those upgraded cards, when you spend them, go back into the discard pile. That's communal, so they get shuffled in, and everyone potentially gets a grab at them. I gotta say, Sean, we kind of did an analysis the other week where we compared The Mind is Magic Maze. It's the game that's my favorite, but may not necessarily win. Azul, the heavy favorite, is kind of like King Domino. Both very elegant games, and games that seem like the odds-on favorite. And then the comparison was for Road to El Dorado or Quest for El Dorado and Luxor. And I will say this, comparing those two games, I liked what Luxor brings to the table more than I liked El Dorado. And I actually think Luxor has a legitimate shot at this. I don't think it's a situation where that game is out of the mix based on having played it. Sean, have you had a chance to try this one yet?
Nope, not yet. I've actually got it ordered with the Ganz, Schon Clever order. So hopefully I'll get that in the next couple weeks.
I'm curious to see what you'll think about it. It's definitely spiel weight. It's the heaviest of the spiels, but it's still, I would call it pretty clearly spiel weight. I think you'll find some very interesting things to it. My question for you, and I have this question too, is there enough variety to have it have staying power? Azul shines because it's gorgeous mechanically, and while it may not have a ton of variability to the game, it works on kind of the elegant nature of play, the table presence, the fact that it's easy to teach. In terms of all of those factors, Luxor is a little less on all of those, except it's stronger on theme, significantly stronger on theme.
Okay.
I think there are a lot of elements of this you'll enjoy. I don't think it's going to be meaty enough for you to enjoy consistently.
Interesting.
So for me, The Mind is still my favorite of the three. It's not my favorite to win of the three. I still think Azul probably has the best shot, but it's kind of feels like one where if any of them won, it doesn't actually surprise me all that much. Last year, I would have been surprised if El Dorado had won. This year, I wouldn't be surprised if any three of them won, based on getting plays of all of them in. So that's Luxor by Queen Games. Rudiger Dorn. Should be an interesting spiel this year. Curious to see what comes out as the winner.
Very cool. Well, last episode, we reviewed Altiplano from Rainer Stockhausen. And this was kind of the spiritual successor to Orleans, a game that we spent a lot of time talking about and comparing Altiplano to, whether that was fairly or unfairly. And so one of the things I said in the last episode was, hey, I want to go back and I want to play Orleans with the expansion, the second expansion, the Trade and Intrigue. Yeah, Trade and Intrigue. And so that's what I did on Wednesday night. I brought my copy to the shop, and we played a 3-player game with pretty much all the modules in Orleans, or Trade and Intrigue. So for quick overview, Orleans is a bag building game where you have these different worker types that you're going to pull out of your bag, certain number. Generally, you want to get more of them out of your bag through certain actions, and you're going to place them on different action spots on your individual board. Some of those action spots require 2 specific workers. Some of them require 3. Eventually, you'll get certain buildings that might require less. And when you take that action, you get something. So you might get a new type of worker plus some other bonus. So, for example, if you take like one of the builders, you get the builder worker to add, and you also get a new building. Whereas I think it's a craftsman, you get this brown worker, plus you get a technology token, which lets you put it on an action space so you can need less workers in the future to activate it. And I always loved Orleans. It's a fantastic game. I think I said that it fell probably from a 6 to a 5 for me. And what this expansion does, and by the way, this is here in the US, it's available through TMG, Taste of Minstrel Games, one of our sponsors. And this actually was a review copy that I got back at Gen Con. Lance gave us a copy gave me a copy at Gen Con.
Whoops.
So sorry that took so long to get to the table. But just full disclosure there, it's really good. So here's what it adds. It adds several things. First, it adds these contract cards where basically if you're in a certain area of the map, because there's a spatial component where you're moving your merchant around and trying to build these trading houses. If you're in a specific town on the map, you can trade in certain goods to complete a contract and get some points more than those goods are worth. And this was always kind of a complaint of mine, is that goods don't do a whole lot for you. They're just worth variable points at the end of the game. And that's really all they did. The other component this thing adds is a replacement beneficial deeds board. So with a bag builder and kind of like a deck builder, you want to thin your deck, or in this case, thin your bag. And so you're able to send some of your workers away to the beneficial deeds in the original game, which gives you certain bonuses. Well, there are 2 different beneficial deeds you can choose from in this board, or two replacements, I should say, for the beneficial deeds. One of them is the naughty version. The other is the nice version. The naughty version, and I say that because basically it's mean. It was really mean. I think it was called the Intrigue board, and it lets you do a bunch of mean stuff. So if I send someone up to one of them, I might be able to have you, Alex, remove one of your workers from one of your actions before you've had a chance to resolve it.
Oof.
Or I might be able to make everyone get tortured, where they have to get rid of one of their goods or a technology or a guild hall or something like that. Or I can make one player pull a token from their bag and add it back to the supply. Lots of different stuff up there. It was, like I said, it was super mean. It was very mean. And then it also added, some new building tiles. It was really cool. I don't think that it's going to elevate it back from a 5 or 6, but what I did notice when I played Orleans, and something that I really always enjoyed about it, was how snappy the gameplay was. And Altiplano didn't have that same snappiness for me. It's tough decisions in Orleans because a lot of times you can fulfill different actions different ways. And so it's not like you're kind of, it's hard decisions, but it's still really quick gameplay, really snappy. And this added a lot to it. I really like this expansion. So much so that I think I would pretty much always play with this expansion. My one quibble is the expansion box. So typically I will get rid of expansion boxes as long as I can fit the components into the original box. I can't do that with this game because I have a Meeple Realty insert and there's just really no room for the expansion stuff. But I can't use the expansion box because it's definitely designed to be just a basic container to get the stuff to you unpunched. Once it's all punched, it doesn't work in this box. It's just one of those, like, it's a tuck box. It's a big, giant, flat tuck box. And so right now I have all of that stuff in a bag, 2 bags. And so that was kind of annoying. I mean, I'm kind of used to being able to, if I need the expansion box, for storage, I can use it. But yeah, so that's my one quibble with it. But overall, I think it was excellent. And would take, it leaves it a high 5. I'll just leave it at that.
High 5.
I think Orleans, high 5. Woo. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, we're actually doing the high 5.
Yeah.
Here, self 5.
Woo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Terrific. So that's Orleans with the Trade and Intrigue expansion. If you're a fan of Orleans, I would say definitely pick up this expansion.
Going back to the UK Games Expo, don't want to go too long without mentioning that I met a ton of Dukes listeners. I was actually really surprised.
Nice.
There were about 8 or 9 who swung by the booth, and I should tell you, we were not easy to find. We were not on the exhibitor list. We were sharing booth space with Board and Dice, the Polish publisher. And so we were kind of like tucked in. We had about 20% of this 20 by 20 booth. Just this little sliver of monochromatic wolf. And yet some folks found us. And I don't remember everyone's name. I do remember offhand that Scott Briance stopped on by. So yeah, nice to meet Scott in person.
Is that how you pronounce his name? Did we find out?
Oh, he actually said it, and it was closer to Beyonce. But I think it was like Brian's. He said it. He certainly said it, and I've totally forgotten.
Yep. Totally
forgotten. Sorry, Scott.
Classic Alex.
Yeah, classic me. But it was nice. Met not only listeners, but some listeners' kids, and yeah, it was cool. It was a cool experience. It's nice to know that we have a more of a UK following than I would have expected. So, yeah, that was nice. But yeah, let's talk a couple more games. One, obviously sharing booth space with Board and Dice. Ended up playing 5-Minute Chase by them. This is a game that literally takes 5 minutes. It's a game where you have a chaser and you have someone running from the cops. It's a game where one person is laying down these tiles as fast as they possibly can to collect different kinds of loot. The other person is quickly trying to solve a puzzle that they're creating by laying those tiles down in order to catch them. That's the quickest way I can explain it, but If you make a mistake as the chaser, that's really good for the person being chased. If you make a mistake as the one being chased, it's a smaller win for the person chasing you. It plays in about 5 and 10 minutes. It lives up to the box name. Yeah, it was interesting. It's very skill-based, Sean. It's one of those where if you're bad at it, you do not stand a chance against someone who has experience in it, which I think is an issue for the game, but in any case. The other one I want to talk about, though, is this abstract game. So it was, okay, this is odd to me, Sean. It was nominated as one of the best 3 abstract games of UK Games Expo for the show awards.
Okay.
I cannot for the life of me find it on BGG.
Really?
I had to re-look up this game by that award nomination. It's a game called Thieves. It's released by Merlin Games. And it's a game that has this very, chess-like abstract look on the table, that kind of clean, nice look to it. The concept is, if I'm remembering correctly, it's a Greek myth, some Greek myth where someone died, there's treasure in the middle of a maze. It's not the Minotaur, it's not that one, it's a different one. I wish I could remember it. That would probably, any case, doesn't matter. There's a gold coin in the center, and your objective is to get that gold coin to your exit and leave. On your turn, you'll roll 2 dice, and you have 4 pieces. The white spots are spots you just kind of stand on. Surrounding each piece, though, are 4 different colors. And those colors determine directions you can move your piece in. So, for instance, if you roll a red and a purple, you must move a piece, one red and another piece, a purple. Alternately, if you're next to the coin, you can pick up the coin for a certain roll. You can toss the coin between your people for a roll. And it's an odd abstract game in that it's an abstract game kind of like backgammon, where chance plays a significant role, a huge role in the game. Because my opponent in this game, I played a full game of this with actually the designer's daughter, who happened to be free up. I was kind of wandering the halls by myself. She had 4 rolls where she could win. She had her piece on the exit door with the coin, with something else. But in order to win, you have to roll a black side. In every other turn of the game, just about, the black side of this dice, one of the 6 sides, is completely useless. It basically means you don't get an action for that dice. And you might roll 2 of them, and oops, too bad, so sad, you don't get a turn. But at the end of the game, you want to roll that, because if you roll that, that means you get to run out of the door, you win immediately. She had a good 3 or 4 rolls where all she needed on those 2 dice was 1 black side. Did not get it. I was able to then swipe the coin away, run all the way to the other side of the board with my piece, and get out. The game has some interesting tactics to it. There's blocking, there's sort of hunting in packs, there's a sort of a passing mechanic between pieces that's pretty cool. There's a forced move mechanic a la checkers that comes into play, and the game looks great on the table. For my money, just not quite enough. Just not quite enough to it. The chance elements take over in a significant way. It's a really good one as a gateway game. I think you could teach just about anyone this game and get them to play it. But it's swingy in a good and a bad way, and it's one where when you win, you don't necessarily feel like you've earned the win. So in any case, that's Thieves. And those literally, Sean, those are the 3 games that are new to me that I played that entire con. That's how busy I was.
Well, so let me ask you then, I guess briefly, so what is UK Games Expo?
Yeah.
Like, I have an idea, and I've watched a bunch of like Dice Tower coverage in the past. But yeah, so what's it like?
I would say it is, if you're thinking about cons, right, there's a spectrum. There's very small local con, right? There's might as well be a tabletop day or hanging out with your buds or whatever else. Then there's the con that's a few hundred people. It's like a regional con. Then there's the more prominent regional cons, for instance, a Dice Tower con, which draws in thousands of people, but still feels small in its own weird way. Geekway to the West very much feels like this too. And those cons can tend to be focused on play. So you think about cons not just in terms of size, but whether they're focused on old games or new games, games that have already been released that people are going to play primarily, or new games where you are pushing hot new releases and you're pushing, the trade hall is the focus. It's is the gaming hall the focus or the trade hall the focus? And
Sure.
And I will say, as someone who has been to a number of these now, I tend to prefer cons as an attendee where the gaming hall is the focus. And by the way, as a company employee too, I also prefer those because it means I'm less busy and have a chance to actually play more games.
Sure.
So, UK Games Expo is more like Gen Con than it is Dice Tower Con. I think I don't know what the attendance is offhand. Maybe 40,000 people sounds right to me. Maybe 50,000. It takes place in a huge expo hall. We were in this convention took up 2 halls out of, I think, this complex had 20 of these huge vendor style halls. Gigantic. It didn't quite have that kind of rat racy crowded feel of Gen Con. There were certainly crowds, but it didn't have that cramped feel to it as much. And I can't speak to how much play was a part of things because I just didn't participate as much on that level. The games I played were at booths. I wasn't around the con at night, so I don't have a good sense. You know, for instance, PAX Unplugged had a decent after-hours scene, had a decent hot games area, decent area where you could pick up and play with folks, as opposed to Gen Con, which has plenty of areas you can play, but feels like a trade show, and there's the event tickets, and it's this big, overwhelming thing. This felt more like Gen Con than, say, Dice Tower Con, is I think my big summary of it. I think it's fun and worth attending, and you're going to see some cool games. For instance, Thieves, I think, is probably only in the UK right now. So you're going to get a good taste of different things. I will say, if you're looking to play hot German games, that's not necessarily the place to find them. At least I was having a hard time finding. I had my eye out for Ganz, Schon, Clever or De Quacksalber, De Quedlinburg, both of which I wanted to try, neither of which I got a chance to. So it's not a con for that if that's kind of your mindset. And then maybe I was foolish to think that way, but yeah, that's a sense of that con. By the way, fun other breaking news here, Sean. It is very possible. I didn't think this was going to happen, but it now appears to be happening. I may be going to Essen this year.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I will probably be working a lot.
Sure.
But I'll be there. So anyway, that's UK Games Expo.
And in other news, I will probably not be going to any cons.
At 0 cons, Sean. 0. Wow.
Well, I think we're gonna have in July, we're gonna have Sean Con.
Okay. Of course it's Sean Con.
My buddies Ellie and Andy, we're talking about them coming out in July, and we'll do some gaming stuff or something. I don't know. That'll be my con experience this year. That's okay. I'm building something, Alex. My empire is finally coming together.
That's true. Everyone should be very afraid. This is like the end of the first act of Sean's supervillain movie.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Anyway, so yeah, that's what we played. Why don't we head on over to the news desk?
All right, first up in news. Well, let's think about this. Sean, I'm going to have you read this news item because some conflicts to talk about as it pertains to this. And this one's an interesting one because it's kind of involved both of us to some degree, but more especially me of late.
So the Unrivaled tournament series and the Unrivaled tournament finals that you and I were special guests at, where we got to hang out and meet Will Wheaton, which was really cool. That is unfortunately no more. So the idea here was that there were a number of games that you could qualify for and all these different regional qualifiers across the country over the year. And then they had these awesome finals in Las Vegas. There was a cool VIP party at GameWorks, which was a fun time. That was a very fun time, a very interesting time, but it was fun. And then the next day, basically, they had all of these finals televised. Basically, it was the tabletop version of esports is what they were kind of envisioning. So apparently that is no more. Recent unexpected changes have occurred with the financial status of our parent company, Umba Inc. This is what the company had to say. Given these changes, we are no longer confident that we will be able to fulfill a quality product for this year's Unrivaled tournament. We believe it's in everyone's best interest that we cancel the event this year and do everything in our power to make all partners and participants whole. This orderly windup will be taking place immediately. That's a bummer because this involved a lot of local game stores and then a lot of publishers, which you're going to speak to here in a second. And it's unfortunate. And I know that, I mean, we were trying to figure out how this whole thing worked while we were there because the production level was incredibly high. They rented out the convention space at Bally's. They had the Orpheum Theater in Bally's?
Sounds right.
Reserved for the finals. And the production value was high, like video and graphics and all this stuff. And then crazy prize payouts, not just to the winner of each game, but to their home store that they were basically playing for. And I don't know exactly, the whole financial picture there, but the idea was this was all televised on Umba.tv, which is the parent company. And it sounds like there was some disagreement between Umba and then Unrivaled. But one of the things they were doing this year was they were trying to get a lot more games, and they reached out to some like Gray Fox Games. Hey, we could say the name here.
Can we? Oh, cool.
Yeah, we can say Gray Fox right now.
Okay.
Don't overstep your bounds, though, Alex.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, we were involved in this one, interestingly enough. I mean, we became aware of it at when you and I went out there last year. I had only recently been hired by Gray Fox when we were out on that trip. It was basically you did that instead of BGG Con, which I recall you regretting to some degree.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, this is to quickly before we kind of get to the professional side of this for me. A quote from the ICV2 article on this, which was an interview with the CEO on May 15th, literally a few weeks ago, and it was talking about kind of the the skepticism about this. Wait, how are you guys doing this? Is this thing legit? And this is a quote from Michael Williams, the CEO. He says, quote, "First off, we don't make money. Last year, we lost about $4 million. This year, we expect to lose about $2 million. Next year, we hope to break even. It's simple math. If you talk about 3,200 players and their entry fees are, think, $10 each, that's $32,000. That doesn't pay for one shoot. 200 stores that have bought these kits, the kits are going for, I think, $300 each. That's $60,000. Again, that barely pays for one shoot." And then goes on to say their play is bigger than that. They're hoping that they can use software to organize tournaments in the future, and that this thing could take off as this goes. But as you could tell from the earlier part of this, this was a big money sink for the parent company. And the same company that was kind of the funding entity for this also was the funding entity for GameWorks. And both of them, there were enough issues that basically this company XWorks stepped in. I found out about this news on Monday as I was flying back from UK Games Expo. And this was something we were obviously very excited about. As a publisher, right, it's a great deal. You contribute games. In our case, we had already contributed a few hundred games. In the case of a specific game, and I'll say it specifically here, Champions of Midgard. The hope is you get these games into stores, there's good exposure, and other than the chance that the whole thing folds suddenly, there's not a ton of risk to it as a publisher. But the risk is when there's a company losing a few $1 million on this every year, that could happen. And in fact, in this case, it did happen. Now, part of this article as well is the CEO mentioning that they're going to hope to make publishing partners whole. As of the time of this recording, we've been told we'll be getting games back, so I think that's happening. But it's not just us. It's Arcane Wonders, another sponsor of the Dukes, had Onitama in this tournament. Right. Exploding Kittens had a game in this. There are, I think, Blue Orange Games was tied up in this too. Literally the week before I flew out to UK Games Expo, there was a big call arranging social media and marketing and other things for this. So the decision to drop this, needless to say, came very suddenly. Now, in some ways, the timing isn't terrible in that it's coming before you buy flights to get folks out to the event in Vegas. It comes before you're investing more marketing dollars in getting trophies and prizes and things like that. It's not a good thing though, right? I think it's a little sad for the hobby, right? This was the chance for the hobby to have a bigger platform, to have a tournament and kind of get in on the esports thing. It was always an odd play. It was always kind of a weird fit, and both you and I, Sean, had mentioned even on the episode where they had invited us out there. is this real? Like, is this some sort of a like Nigerian prince kind of thing? Like, what's going on with this?
Right.
And it turns out it was real. It was just only real for a year. So we'll see if this comes back in some other form or fashion in the future. I hope it can in a financially sustainable way.
Sure.
But I appreciate that someone was willing to at least go big or go home. And I will have fond memories of the time that we spent out at the 1 year of this event, Sean. Fond memories indeed.
Yeah, it was a good time, and I just barely broke even from the gambling. So anytime you go to Vegas and break even, that's a good trip.
That's right. That's the important part, Sean.
That stupid blackjack that had no tens in it.
Oh yeah, I know the one you're talking about. Yeah. Any case, so yeah, that's what's happening with Unrivaled. So kind of a bummer if you're a fan of board games. Kind of a bummer for us on the professional side, publishing side, and boy oh boy, am I going to try and stop talking so much about monochromatic wolf stuff the rest of this show. I will do my best. But yeah, that was some sudden stuff that happened this week that bummed me out, Sean. Bummed me out.
Yeah, it's too bad. All right, well, let's move on to our Kickstarter, Alex. This is one that I am very excited about. This is not one that I think I'm going to back because the price tag is a bit too high for what it is, and I'm not sure what its retail availability is going to look like, at least initially. I am a big fan of Richard Borg and his Commands and Colors series. I have been a big fan for years and years and years. I bought Memoir 44 when it first came out back in, was that 2002, 2003. I own Battlelore First Edition, Battlelore Second Edition. I own multiple different Commands and Colors, the Great War, which is the World War I variation. And so this is Commands and Colors in Space, or how it prefers to be called, Red Alert, a space fleet warfare game. This is basically 92 plastic starship models, and it's this giant space playmat, and it's divided into the 3 classic Commands and Colors sections. Basically, you have the center and 2 wings, and it's a game where you have a hand of cards, and your cards dictate how many units you can activate, and whether it's in the left wing, the right wing, or the center. And of course, there's some special cards that kind of play with that a little bit. But it's all space combat. So you've got dreadnoughts and cruisers and battleships and all sorts of different types of things. It looks really cool. This is published by PSC Games. They did The Great War, which I mentioned before. That's the World War I game. And they did Martin Wallace's Lincoln, a Civil War game. So yeah, this is really cool looking, but if you want to get this, it's £90, the price is, which is about $120. And as far as I can see, I'm not quite seeing $120 worth of a game in here. I mean, you think of a game like Battlelore. I can't remember what Battlelore Second Edition goes for, but there's so much game in that box with amazing miniatures, lots of cool Fantasy Flight components. This one I'm not so sure about, and I couldn't really find anything on the Kickstarter, Alex, that set this apart from other games in the Commands and Colors series. So like, there's a bunch of Commands and Colors Ancients, which is all blocks, right? Which you would hate. You would absolutely hate it. You like Battlelore, but it's got cool miniatures. It's a really like immersive thematic experience, but the blocks are just not, they wouldn't be your thing, right?
Probably not, no.
Yeah. Whereas, I'll play that with a bunch of expansions. I've got Napoleonics. Commands and Colors Medieval's coming out later this year, or at least the Kickstarter is or something. Anyway, point being, I'm not sure how this is distinguished from these other games in the family. But I like space combat games. So it's something that I'm hoping I'll be able to pick up at retail at some point soon. Does this have any interest for you?
Not really. I've played Battlelore and I really enjoyed Battlelore, but if it's not selling you, Sean, I think it's going to have a hard time selling me.
Not at this price tag.
Yeah, certainly not at this price tag. Battlelore Second Edition, by the way, $80 MSRP, in case that comparison point is helpful.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you get, like I said, you get a lot of game in that box.
You do.
Yeah,
you do.
I mean, if this were $80, I would probably be a lot more inclined to back this. It's certainly, at some point or another, I'm going to pick it up. And maybe it's going to be at a future Dice Tower Con where Richard Borg is selling a bunch of damaged copies of his games.
Yeah, that worked out well for you that one time.
Yeah. So anyway, this if you're interested in this, like I said, it's about £90, $120 US. There's some options for retailers as well. And it's expected to deliver March 2019. It's currently raised about $76,000. So it's funded. And you've got until June 26th to decide if this is something that you're interested in backing.
You know, it's interesting, Sean, in reading up on looking up battle lore and talking about this. Oddly enough, it's put the possibility of actually buying battle lore in my mind, if only because Miniature Market is currently selling copies for the low price of $40.
Ooh, interesting.
Battle Lore 2nd Edition for $40. That is a killer price. Absolutely killer price.
Yeah, I might pick up another copy.
What do you need another copy for? What's that going to do?
You have more miniatures, and so you have more variety in units.
Okay.
Like you can have more of a particular type of unit.
Oh no. Sean, I wasn't trying to trigger it. Wasn't trying to trigger that disorder for you.
Sorry, too late.
Too late. Anyway, yeah, I'm probably not going to pick this one up or that one because I can't think of who I would actually be playing it with. But yeah, probably not going to back this one, Sean. Pretty unlikely.
No, you wouldn't. Why would you think you would?
That's a look at Red Alert's Space Fleet Warfare, and that is a look at the news.
2018 is the 10th anniversary for Tasty Minstrel Games, and they're celebrating with a 10th anniversary extravaganza, which includes reprints, special editions, and a whole lot more. Earlier this month, they had the Homesteaders 10th Anniversary Edition on Kickstarter. They made the decision not to deluxify this game so that it could be available at retail, so be sure to keep an eye out for that. TMG is also hard at work putting together a new edition of the second game that launched the company, Terra Prime. Terra Prime will now be set in the very successful Eminent Domain universe as a prequel to Eminent Domain called Eminent Domain Origins. Keep an eye out for more details about this and what else they have on the horizon for their 10th anniversary extravaganza. You can learn more from the TMG podcast hosted by Lance the Undead Viking, and you can check out what else they have in store this year, along with information about all their other amazing titles over at playtmg.com. Arcane Wonders is pleased to announce the release of Senshi coming this May. In Senshi, you are a warrior monk studying diligently at the temple under the tutelage of the current master. You and your fellow students train vigorously every day to improve your mind and body, but your master is ailing, and only one Senshi will become the next master. To prove your worth, you must develop 4 attributes: strength, agility, wisdom, and honor. A true master must be strong in all of these, and weak in none. Senshi is designed by Dan Manfredi. It's a strategy game for 2 to 4 players that takes about 15 minutes to play. You'll carefully manipulate stacks of tiles that represent those 4 attributes: the strength, agility, wisdom, and honor. You'll compete in a battle of wits to become the next master of your temple. You can learn more about Senshi and Arcane Wonders, other amazing titles at arcanewonders.com. You know what, friends? Board game tables are an expensive proposition for sure, but nothing beats the experience of playing your favorite games in style on a high-quality playing surface. Now, thanks to our buddy Berkey and Game Toppers, you can turn your own kitchen or dining room table into a premium, portable game solution with all the features of a high-end gaming table, but, and this is important, at a fraction of the cost. I have played games on these Game Toppers before, and I have got to say that they are truly excellent. This is someone who has played on custom-built tables, on mass-produced gaming tables. I got to tell you, these Game Toppers are fantastic. They feature the best of both worlds, featuring beautiful premium wood and finishes, as well as lightweight aluminum to make the setup, breakdown, and transportation a breeze. Plus, you can use thematic gaming mats to match your play experience. So, if you're looking for an affordable solution to your board gaming table needs, look no further than Game Toppers, and you can check them out at GameToppersLLC.com.
Rollin', 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 keep them dice a-rollin', rollin', 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 rollin' right. This week, we are talking about a rollin' right, but it's not your granddad's rollin' right, or your grandma's, or any other family members. This is a game that brings a little bit more to the table. So does this more advanced rollin' right deliver, or does it stop on the tracks and run out of steam? It's SteamRollers.
So Alex, I think my favorite part of that intro was how I could see the gears turning, and you're like, it's not your grandfather's rolling right. Oh wait, I better be inclusive. It's not your grandmother's either.
Well, I just want to be clear on which family members this rolling right is and is not belonging to.
And what rolling rights were our grandparents playing, Alex?
They were playing Yahtzee.
Okay.
Specifically.
All right, so let's talk about SteamRollers, Alex. This is a roll and write game. It is published by Stronghold Games, originally by Flatline Games, designed by Mark Garretts, with art by Benjamin Benetow. And this whole genre of roll and write, boils down to this. You roll some dice, and you pick some of those dice to use, and you execute actions on a board or a piece of paper or a card or whatever that you have to yourself, and you're going to score some points usually, right? That's the idea of roll and writes. And I think that it's a pretty interesting concept, and I'm happy to see the different design space that's been used in this genre in the last couple of years. So, as you were alluding to, Alex, this is a bit more complex for a roll and write game, because this is taking a roll and write game and combining it with a train game, where you are basically laying tracks, and then you're delivering goods from one place to another based on those tracks that you have laid. So, you have, when you set this game up, a board in the center that you're going to place some random cubes on, and these cubes are different goods, they're different colors, and they correspond to different regions on the map. Everyone has their own sheet of paper that corresponds to that central map, and what you're going to do is you're going to go around, roll some dice, and then draft the dice. Everyone's going to take turns being first player, and with the die that you pick, and by the way, these are just regular D6s, 1 to 6, you're going to choose an action. Your actions are limited to either drawing rails, delivering goods, or possibly grabbing one of the special tiles that are out there in the center, which I'll talk about in a second. So if you choose to draw some track, you're going to pick the die, and that's the region of the board that you're going to be able to draw in. So there's regions 1 through 6, and there's also a die that you roll that shows 2 different types of track. So like other train games, you can draw a straightaway track, a gentle curve, or a sharp curve. And so you'll draw that in, and cool, you've done that, great. Now, let's say that you have also connected certain areas. There's basically cities, which are the point of origins for the goods, and you're delivering them to other cities, but you're going to get some points if you're able to pass through towns along the way. If I want to make this delivery, I have to make sure that my locomotive strength is high enough to get from the origin point through however many towns and ultimately to the city I go. And I forgot to mention, that's another use for the dice. You can add to locomotive strength as the game progresses. But you're going to pick a die that is your origin city. And then, so let's say that I have a red cube in this origin city. I need to get it to the red city. If I've got the track and I've got the locomotive strength, I'm going to make that delivery, and then I'm going to score points basically for every connection I go through. So pretty cool. And then finally, I mentioned the special tiles, and these are ways that you can break some of the rules. These are tiles that you get that may give you a one-time ability or some sort of ongoing ability. Maybe it lets you manipulate a die, or it lets you use the destination die value instead of the origin die value, or maybe for one delivery, it gives you infinite locomotive strength, so you can go to, 12 spots if you can manage that. Although I think 7 or 8 is the most I've done. When all of this is over, you're going to add up all the points you've scored from delivering goods. You're going to get some points based on whether or not you've added high enough locomotive strength, 4, 5, or 6. And you're going to get some points based on some of those special tiles you've collected, possibly positive points, possibly negative points. And then also you're going to get some points for the cities that you've connected to one another with some bonuses for having passed through the towns. Whoever has the most points at the end of this, and by the way, the game's going to end when you've removed all the cubes from 3 of the different 6 sections. Whoever has the most points is the winner of SteamRollers. Alex, what'd you think of SteamRollers?
I liked it a lot, Sean.
Yay!
I think it's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good. In fact, you're right. In how you described it, it combines a roll and write, which some of these can be really simple. Roll and writes can be some of the simplest games out there, really. And it shows, along with a couple of other examples, you mentioned Ganz, Schon, Clever, it shows that these can be something more. And this combination of that roll and write with a train game, a game like similar to like a Steam or Brass or that type of a game, but not quite as complex. It's this nice middleweight feel to this game.
Yeah.
It's this nice, elegant, interesting. Dice drafting is really nice in this. The game flows really well. The game has a number of little mini expansions you can play with or not play with, and there's enough player interaction where it feels interesting. It does a lot of things really right, Sean. And off the top of my head, and maybe we'll talk through it, and I'll come up with some, I don't have a lot of negatives about this one. And so I think what it accomplishes, what it seeks to accomplish, have a roll and write mixed with a train game, it really succeeds at.
Yeah, no, I agree. So let's provide some brief context, Alex. So I have the flatline version of the game. I backed this on Kickstarter, and so I got my Kickstarter version a month or 2 ago. And you picked this up, so full disclosure, this was a review copy that you got from Stronghold, correct?
That is correct. Got it from them at Geekway to the West.
And so you were playing with the Stronghold edition, and my understanding is that there's virtually no difference between the two.
Yeah, not to my knowledge.
Does Steven throw in pens or pencils?
I'm trying to remember if those were in the game. Huh. I don't think those were in the game.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's my my one component issue is they don't give you stuff.
Hey, don't jump ahead. What are you jumping ahead for? Come on.
Oh, sorry.
Respect the order.
So anyway, yeah, no, I think this is a great roll and write game. I think you kind of nailed it when you said that it's a great mix of roll and write with a train game. It scratches that train game itch. When I play a pick up and deliver game, it can't overstay its welcome. It just can't for me. Pick up and deliver is not one of my favorite mechanics. But when done in the right package, when done correctly, for me, that's just, a personal preference, I can really like it. And so in a game like Islebound, I really like the pick up and deliver. In a game like Age of Steam, I'm tending to like the rail games a little bit more. I don't think I'll ever really be a big fan of like crayon rail games. But anyway, I like it here. I don't mind it here. And what's nice is because the goods are shared, there is some racing to be able to deliver the right good to the right city and being able to do it before your opponent does. And so like you said, there's a good amount of interaction. I did find myself maybe in the lower count games, like in the 2 and 3 player games, really checking on what other people had. Am I safe waiting to make this delivery, to extend one more spot or whatever, because I know that this person is either not dealing with the 4 city at all, and this other person is still 2 connections away from it. So I found that a lot. So I enjoyed that interaction. And then also we talked about some expansions. I think some of this, the contract expansion adds some interaction where basically you're trying to fulfill these contract specific goods. I think this is an excellent roll and write. I would not consider this a filler. Many roll and writes, I think in my mind, are a filler, and this is definitely a step up. It's not necessarily the main course for a gaming evening, but it's got interesting decisions. It's chunky enough for my taste, and it scratches that train game itch in a pretty quick package, like 30, 45 minutes, depending on the number of players.
Well, that's what I like is it brings enough to the table for folks who are craving maybe more of that rail experience, and yet is simple enough. It's certainly not gateway, but it's simple enough that it's going to be accessible to a lot of players. I think there's a lot of folks out there who could enjoy this game. There's a big spectrum of our audience. So I think it scratches a lot of itches in that way and checks a lot of boxes, as we will talk about much, much more.
You literally check boxes in this game.
You do. You do, in fact.
Yes.
Rulebook. Schon, rulebook. How's the rulebook?
The rulebook is great. The rules reader is not. And I made some big mistakes my first couple plays. And it's not a fault of the rulebook. It's just because I'm a big old dummy, Alex. One of the things was the endgame scoring as far as the connections. I read it completely wrong, and it was worded how it needed to be worded, and that was on me. The other thing was the cities you don't have to draw a track into because they're already kind of drawn there for you. The towns, I kind of read that to be the same, and that is totally wrong.
Yeah, no, that's not how it works.
No, and it made the game way easier. So overall, I think the rulebook is good, and I'm just a big dummy.
Yeah, I mean, I was able to learn from it, and that's the sign of a good rulebook. I don't recall any issues offhand. Yeah, no, it worked pretty well.
All right, well, as far as art and components go, this is a roll and write, so a lot of times you'll just get this, this big pad of papers, which is pretty normal. Some of the games are doing some things with dry erase. Eventually, I'll laminate this. The pages are double-sided, which is nice. So you've got plenty to play with in there. But like I said, all of the roll and writes that I tend to like, I wind up laminating, and then throwing dry erase markers in because it's just easier that way. So yeah, I think you've got solid dice, D6s. The track die is a little bit bigger. The weird thing on the track die, which I just don't know why they do this, so it's got the straightaway, the sharp curve, or the gentle curve. But for some reason, they throw a little squiggly in. And it made it a little bit hard to read. And I'm not sure why they had the squiggly. In fact, I think the hexes on the track die could have been a little bit bigger. I think there was room to make them a little bit bigger, but they didn't do that for whatever reason. It's got your standard, small Eurogame colored cubes, wooden cubes, and that's fine for what it is. I think overall it's a very competent, for lack of a better word, execution of the components.
Yeah, I would say there's nothing that holds it back in a big way, and it also isn't a standout like, man, this thing looks great on the table, have to play it kind of thing. Right. I think the iconography is understandable when you have a sense of how things are supposed to go. The one-time use versus multi-use, I think all clicks into place fairly well. It's not like, again, it's not one of these that I'm going to look at it on the table and be like, ooh, I have to play this now. It's one of these that I'd have to play to really appreciate, if that makes any sense. So,
sure.
Art style, to me, it has this kind of classic train game kind of look. It's not as themeless or as dull as a lot of them. It's also not modern necessarily, which I don't think it was going for.
That's fair.
I'm not in love with the art with this one, Sean. I think much like the production of the rest of it, competent. It doesn't hold the game back, which I think is the best thing I can say about it.
So, what are your thoughts when you first played this game, Alex? Because you like roll and writes, but you're so on train games typically, right?
I mean, it depends on the train game, right? Ticket to Ride has been a family favorite, but I think folks who think about train games are immediate. I can just see it in your eyes, Sean.
Okay.
Your eyes are rolling so hard. It's a reverse Hanabi moment. No, So I played Brass, and I really enjoyed Brass, even though we had, which frustrated me to no end, the rules repeatedly wrong. By the way, Brass signaled the end of my relationship with Jillian. Fun story.
Oh, was it? Oh,
yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was a Sunday. It was at Empire. It was before the store opened, and Jillian, who was out babysitting the kids, was upset that I had scheduled more gaming time instead of coming to her at work and having breakfast with her and the kids. Not, by the way, our kids, for folks who don't know that I don't have kids, but strangers' kids, like kids she was... Anyway. Yeah, that was the call that sparked the end of the relationship. It came in the middle of Brass. So
I remember that.
I have a very interesting connection to that specific game. I have not tried any of the 18xx games. At some point, maybe you'll get me to do that. I'm sure it'll happen. By the way, Indonesia seems likely in my future. Josh has a big old hankering for that.
Oh, don't do it, Alex. Please don't do it.
I might do it.
Oh, by the way, it's excellent, but don't do it.
Yeah. Look, there's enough of an appeal to train games and some of those network building kinds of things that I certainly don't mind it. I certainly don't mind it. And so that in and of itself didn't put me off. What I thought was really cool about this game is the sheer number of decision points, that you have a lot of flexibility with these dice. You can obviously draw track, and the track is limited, right? You only have 2 of the 3 route options available, but it's not so limited that it really hurts you all that much. You can make a delivery if you have the connections built out well enough. You can steal from someone. I think how the powers work in this game is really interesting. It potentially creates a few take that for the team moments, right? Where if someone has this one ongoing power that they've been sitting on forever, it might be worth it at some point to take it away from them and keep that from them. Because some of those things can be really, really useful, like the ability to use a die as one greater or lower than its value is potentially very, very useful. But it also provides some interesting pressure with the one-time use powers, because the truth is, the one-time powers, you have one chance you can use them, and if you don't use them, you still have it, but someone else could steal it from you. So you might have taken an action to get this one-time power that ultimately just goes down the drain. And there's an interesting pressure that comes up as a result of that, this pressure of, oh, do I use it here, or do I hold off? Do I just chill out for a second with this? The interactions of how this all goes, it's not a complete player interaction game, but there's enough of it there. And I liked how it all clicked together in that way, Sean. This race to build out your network in the right way. This trade-off sometimes between getting small amounts of points and bleeding out cubes in a city, or really building out your network and going for heavy hitters, going for the really long-distance deliveries. Right. All the while, keeping your eye, if it's in the game, on contracts. There's a lot of satisfying decisions in this game, Sean. A lot of them.
Okay, let me ask you this. What expansions did you play with? Did you play with all of them?
All of them, yeah.
Okay, so it comes with 3 modules you can add. It's got the contracts, which you already mentioned. It's got starting player bonuses, which are just very subtle. There's not a whole lot to them. Basically, you might get to start with an extra track that you've drawn, or an extra locomotive strength, or just 2 points at the end of the game. And then the other one is the coal expansion, where you get to add coal to certain cities based on kind of an initial setup rules. And the coal is wild for purposes of which city you can send it to, and also wild for contract completing purposes. And the first couple games when I was teaching new players, we kept the expansions out. But ultimately, I think that you could probably play with all the expansions from the get-go, and it's not terribly complex. It adds enough to it that I feel a little bit more satisfied playing this game with those in, especially those contracts and the coal. I like that a lot. And overall, I've really enjoyed these plays. What I was kind of thinking about is, as much as I enjoy roll and writes, I don't think to bring them out that often. And I'm not sure why necessarily. It's the kind of thing where I'll play it a bunch when I first get it, and then I kind of forget about it. Even if I love it and I think it's excellent and whatever, it's just something that I don't quite think about or remember to do. And I'm wondering if this is going to have a bit more staying power for me. I don't know. Have you thought about that?
Well, so a typical roll and write situation, or situation where I'd bring it out, would be fillers, because a lot of them are filler length. They're not, and this is not meant as pejorative, but they're not the full length, or as you mentioned, the main course kind of games, right?
Right.
Typically. So as fillers, so as the start of a night or in between games or whatever else, that's a situation they come out. Traveling, some of these make excellent travel games. Suzanne has brought several to, say, Dice Tower Con that have been fantastic. Those are the main ones, and there's a whole genre of roll and writes. This Roll in America, it's multiplayer solitaire. That kind of multiplayer solitaire game that I will kind of just write off. I will play them if other people are playing them. I will almost never suggest, say, a Karuba or a Roll in America. That multiplayer solitaire doesn't appeal to me, especially if it's pure multiplayer solitaire. In fact, I got rid of Castles of Burgundy, the dice game, because it was just that.
Can I just point out that there's neither rolling nor writing in Karuba?
Okay, fair. No, isn't there writing? I'm trying to remember how that goes.
No, there's tiles. You're placing tiles. It's tile placement.
Okay, well, it feels like a roll and write, Sean.
No, it doesn't. It's a reverse roll and write. You spin and etch. No, that doesn't work. Spin and erase. No,
It's been a long time since I've played Karuba. I meant more to illustrate the multiplayer solitaire.
Okay.
It's not a roll and write, to be clear. I'm well aware it's not a roll and write. Please don't write angry letters.
Are you well aware? Because you were kind of arguing for it.
I'm very aware.
You're now aware after considerable efforts by myself to make you aware.
I am so aware. I am the most aware. There's been no one who's ever been more aware than me in this moment. I'm going to blame that on jet lag, Sean.
Sure.
Jet lag and this delicious Blue Moon. When you need refreshment, it's got to be Blue Moon. Established 1985. Blue Moon Brewing Company, St. Louis, Missouri. No, not St. Louis.
What?
Wherever they're from. Golden, Colorado. Brewed in Colorado.
Great. So, SteamRollers.
SteamRollers. Really good.
What play counts did you play it at?
I played it at 3 and 4.
Okay. So, it's good you avoided the 5. 5 was a little bit too much downtime. I thought 4 was probably a little bit too much downtime. 2 was too much downtime in the sense, a lot of 2-player games, or games that you play at 2 players, you need the extra time of that third player to do planning for your turn coming up. And so I even thought there was a decent amount of lag at 2 players. 3 players, to me, was the sweet spot. It was super snappy at 3. I really liked it at 3.
Yeah, that's my favorite play count, too.
If you're a fan of roll and writes, is this a game you should check out?
Are you kidding me?
I don't know. Is it?
Yes.
Okay. If you're a fan of train games, let's say that you're a big train person. A big train. It sounds weird.
Well, is this a person who's half train?
Yes.
Half person?
Yes. It's all top half.
Okay. Huh.
So is this gonna fulfill that train game itch that you might get from time to time?
I am not the right person to ask this. I will say if you're a snob about this kind of thing, like an 18xx snob, maybe not.
Hey.
No, I'm not.
Cool,
I'm
man.
saying
Be
if you're
cool.
like only 18xx is the real train games. Like the rest of these are posers. I don't know. I have a feeling that you're more in that category. You're not hardcore train, but your game tastes are heavy enough that if you're feeling fulfilled by this, Sean, I think folks who would typically be fulfilled by those types of games will find a lot to like here. It's certainly shorter than a lot of your typical games of this type, right? But I think that's a good thing in this context. It does not overstay its welcome by any means.
Yeah, I think at 5 it may have overstayed its welcome a bit, but no, generally speaking, I would agree with that. Unfortunately, I did not get to play this solo. I was really hoping to get a solo play of this in before our review, but it just didn't work out that way. I was going to bring it with work to me today. To work with me. There you go. Today, and I just forgot in the morning. But I'm probably going to try it maybe later tonight or this weekend or something. I think it's got some good solo potential. So that's definitely the plan. Alex, is this thematic in your mind?
It is. I want to go back real quick to something though.
By all means,
Mr. Jump Ahead,
Sorry,
getting ahead of the game.
That's what I do.
We're talking about replayability and variability. Sean, did you play with the medium or hard maps? Did you play with any of the other maps?
No. So basically, it's all the same map, but you can choose to add in these mountain ranges that are impassable to add some difficulty to the game. There's medium and hard, and that just didn't sound that interesting to me. It sounded like it would slow the game down too much, and I didn't think that was necessarily worthwhile. Did you?
I did not play with it.
Okay.
I think it's cool that it's an option. I think it's really cool that it's an option because I think it adds some longer-term replayability to, hey, we both have some experience playing this. We both have some reps in this game. Let's try amping up the difficulty a bit and really constraining routes, making you think much more meaningfully about the choices you make in terms of how you build track and restricting the game in a way that, will certainly lengthen the gameplay, but I think lengthen in a way that proves to be an interesting challenge. I think in those kinds of games, there ends up being more of a knife fight over, say, the powers than you might get it at other versions of this. So I think it's cool that it's in there. I like that they did this, and I like that they have the sheer number of maps that they do. To me, because of that, and because there are multiple sides for the powers, there's a lot of replayability in this game, Sean. There's a lot of replayability in this package.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. So theme, Alex.
So theme, yeah, it's a train game. I don't know. Choo-choo, chugga-chugga, what?
Yeah, so in my mind, it's not so much that it's thematic, but the idea that it scratches that itch of a train game, which it does. So,
hey, the Guild had some thoughts on this one, Sean.
They sure did.
Jesse Metcalf said, I backed the Kickstarter of SteamRollers, and I am really glad that I did. Gives me all the satisfaction of Steam in a fraction of the time. It's a great implementation of the roll and write mechanic, really showing how deep one can make a game with it. It's simple enough to teach casual gamers, yet deep enough to enjoy as a hobby gamer. It won't replace Steam or any other train game in my collection, but it will certainly be alongside them on my shelf. A solid 6 on the Ducal scale. 6 from Jesse Metcalf. Whoa. By the way, if folks have contributed for a long time, do we get to call them senior correspondents, senior contributors? Can we start changing up the titles for that?
If you want, go for it.
Senior correspondent, no, contributor. Senior contributor Jesse Metcalf gives it a 6.
Okay. Fraser Eden had to say, I backed SteamRollers on Kickstarter and find it an excellent roll and write, probably my favorite. Feels very much like a quick version of Railways of the World. So, yeah, I think those kind of echo a lot of what we had to say.
Yeah, I would say so. Hey, Sean, you want to go first?
All right, I'll go first. So let's give this a rating here at the Dukes of Dice. We give everything a rating on our 6-point scale. A 1 is a terrible, terrible game. A 6 is an all-time favorite that's a contender for our top 10. And right now, this is probably competing for my favorite roll and write. I think that Ganz, Schon, Clever is also in contention. I really like, is it Wizard's Tower, which is a solo print and play game, is really good. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else might get up there. I don't know. So if we were to have a separate roll and write ducal scale, this would be a roll and write 6. It would be a roll and write 6. But instead, just using our general scale, I'm going to give this a 5. A great game, will rarely turn down a play of it. The more I thought about this last night, because I was talking with some of the people we were playing with, and I had it like a high 4. And I'm like, yeah, it's probably a high 4. And then as I was thinking about it while I was falling asleep and thinking about it during today while I was working and just wondering what I was, is it going to be that high 4? No, I think it's really excellent. And I think it's interesting. It's almost held back by the fact that it's not quite a filler and it's not quite like a full centerpiece game experience, if that makes sense. But I like it a lot. So I'm gonna keep it there at we'll call it a decent 5.
Decent 5? That's the first. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Trademark. Decent.
I don't know what that translates to numerically.
Exactly.
Because normally we're using high five, or low 5 is shorthand. And I don't know what decent 5 shorthands
Well, I want people to think about it. You know what I mean? I want a little mystery.
What?
I want a little mystery out there.
Okay. Weird. You're weird.
You're weird, sir.
You're weird, sir.
Give us your score and your final thoughts.
All right. Well, I suddenly got towards the end of this review very sleepy. But that has no actual impact on my score, and it's not a reflection of the game. I think it's a reflection of, flying a bunch and being tired. Hey, let's talk about this game. I don't have a lot of bad things to say about this game, Sean. Sure, it's not a standout components-wise, but the gameplay is really, really solid. And this game length that you think as a weakness is actually, to me, a strength. I like this length of game. I think it's beautiful. It lets you play a bunch of different things, still feel like you have a satisfying experience, and not feel like it's empty calories, so to speak. Yeah, it makes it substantive gaming in a package that's easy enough to be accessible to casual gamers, provides interesting enough decisions for hobby gamers, and works really well. Not only that, it shows the potential of what a roll and write can be. And a roll and write, if combined with the correct mechanics and done well enough, can be a really substantial, interesting, cool game. I love this roll and write renaissance. I'm really excited to try Ganz, Schon, Clever to see how that stands up. But I think the statement from the Kennerspiel shows that this is a mechanic that, much like Legacy was a mechanic that was on the rise not too long ago, this one is definitely on the rise. And I'm very excited about it. I'm very excited that this game exists. I think it does a beautiful job and lets me get a better taste of rail games that I might not normally have the patience to have. And so for that, because I don't have a ton of negatives to say, it's a pretty high score, Sean. It's not quite a 6. I don't think I'm going to consider this when I'm thinking of top 10 of all time.
Right.
But boy, oh boy, I'm going to recommend this in a good number of situations. I'm going to give this one a 5. A great game. We'll rarely turn down a play of it. I'm excited to share this one with more people, and I'm curious to see how it'll hold up over time. But for now, I'm really digging this game. Really digging this game.
Very cool. Well, that's going to do it for the Dukes review of SteamRollers. 5 from each of us.
You are listening to the Dukes of Dice, proud members of the Dice Tower Network. For other great shows in the network, check out dicetowernetwork.com. Back to Alex and Sean for this week's Dukes Double Take.
All right, next up, Blood Bowl from episode 146. Rank me up before you Blood Bowl. Sean, you gave this one a 6, despite the fact that you had just lost the Empire Board Game Library tournament in utterly heartbreaking fashion to me. Man, oh man, was that a fun time. You gave this one a 6. You said, I have loved this game for 15 years and still continue to. I gave this one a 4, and I was more conflicted on this game. I acknowledged that there were some straight-up frustrating things about this game. It had long turns, some of the more... it had some stuff that was more fiddly. You have to look at tables and charts, and it's just stuff that it doesn't tend to appeal to me. But the theme, I was absolutely in love with. Saved by the theme, really was, and I gave it a 4. I said the game itself was maybe a 2 or 3. The theme was a 5 or 6, and as a result, it ended up right there at a 4. Sean, have you played this game since?
I have not played it on the tabletop, although I've played it, I played it a bunch on the iPad since that tournament. And it's one that I've played off and on for years, whether in league play, various editions of the game, whether it was on the computer, whether it was on my iPad, whatever. I love this game. It's always going to be a 6 for me. I mean, at this point, a lot of 6s tend to be, it's a top 40, top 50 game, kind of. This is one that I highly consider for my top 10, but for some reason, I kind of like a Magic or an LCG, it didn't quite fit for me on my actual top 10, but I absolutely love this game. By the way, that game that I lost to you in the finals of that tournament, it all hinged on one die roll that was basically roll 3 dice, pick the one you want to use. It was like 98% to be successful.
I think we determined at the time it was 93%. I think we did the odds.
Yeah, like that's pretty crazy. That's pretty frustrating. But
yeah.
No, and you're right. This is a very frustrating game. I have had so many moments of just pure frustration in this game, but I love it. I think what I probably talked about a lot in the review was that it's the puzzle of this game, because basically it's 2 fantasy football teams, not in the sense that we think of now, but like Orcs and Goblins fantasy football teams. And you're trying to score touchdowns, but you're also trying to beat the snot out of each other. And that's kind of the more fun part to it, right? And so it's dice rolling where you're trying to get advantages by the way you're positioning things, and you're trying to pick up the ball or knock the ball carrier down or whatever. And it's just such a great game. I really love this game. And like I was saying, I love the puzzle of this game, because you're saying, all right, this is my goal, but before I can do this, I have to do this. But before I can do that, I have to do this. And it's walking that back and trying to do it in an order where the things that are most likely to be successful happen first. And I love that puzzle. I just love it.
And for me, I'm a sucker for sports themes, right? If it's obviously Baseball Highlights 2045 first mention, that's going to get me going. Blood Bowl got me going theme-wise. Soccer Tactics World, which as a game is, again, probably like a 3 in the right situation because of the theme of it, is frantic fun. Frantic fun. I have not played this game since, but I did do something related to this game that's unusual for me since. Sean, I bought a team in the time since we recorded this. I bought a team of frogmen, which I had shipped over from, I believe, Italy. They did not make it there all in one piece. Some of the arms of my frogmen were broken off, and it bummed me out, Sean. It bummed me out. I never got to play with that frog team. I still have them somewhere. I think they're up in storage here at the apartment. Now, Sean, you did say something during that episode that I went back and listened to. You told me if I were to buy a team, and I did buy a team, they didn't all get there intact, but I did buy a team, that you would paint that team.
Okay.
My team remains unpainted, sir.
Well, that's not my fault.
It's not your fault.
You don't even know where they are.
They're here. They're in my apartment somewhere.
You're like hundreds of miles away from me.
Well, yeah.
Thousands?
At least 8,000, I think.
How many leagues are you away from me?
I don't know how many leagues.
How many Blood Bowl leagues? I want you to talk about how many leagues are being played in the cities between us.
I will say this, by the way, in addition to buying a team, which I never actually used, I have actively, repeatedly sought out Blood Bowl on Nintendo Switch because I don't have an iPad, and they have not released it yet. I hope that they do because my Mac can't play it. I don't have a PC. I don't have any other way I can possibly play this game, and I really want to play this game, specifically in more of a digital setting if possible, and unable to do so, and it bums me out.
Yep, that is a bummer. So, over on the Guild, Andrew Mason said,
Hey, jumps ahead a lot, yet again. It stays at a 4 for me. Back to you.
Good. Well, yeah, of course it does. So, Andrew Mason said, I've played Blood Bowl on and off for many years, although I haven't played the most recent version. Always enjoyed the campaign play and trying to build up a team. There sometimes feels as though there is a slight bias towards the more combat-style teams, or maybe that's just the way we play. And that's, so there are teams that are better at beating up each other, and then there are teams that are really fast and agile and good passers. There's, like the Amazons or the Wood Elves or the Skaven that are really fast. And you got the big bruiser teams like Chaos and the Orcs and Dwarves and things like that.
Hey, by the way, I looked it up. I am 1,043 miles.
Okay.
15.5-hour drive. It's a long drive.
Yep. What else did the Guild have to say, Alex?
Chris Holmes says, League play is where Blood Bowl really shines. Last week against the Chaos Chosen team, my human team, the Mean Greeners, recruited and started our first Ogre. I started him at left end only to have an opposing Minotaur smash his collarbone on the very first block of the game. Ooh. Ouch. Our best passer got an ego trip and then got knocked out for most of the second half, but he returned for the final drive and scored on the final play from his own end zone via his mighty passing arm. We won 3-2. Stories like this happen every game, some crushing losses, some gloriously won, all fun. Blood Bowl remains a high 6 for me on the ducal scale. I would agree. Part of the appeal of this game to me is the fact that injuries or stories of the game carry over game to game. There's an ongoing element to this that is really satisfying. And obviously, the game provides memories because I have a distinctive memory of exactly how that last game went with us when I beat you in that tournament, Sean.
Yeah. I gotta tell you, one of the worst feelings is when you have this star player who has gotten all of these upgrades and then they just die. They die. And your apothecary roll fails and you're just like, did that just happen? Oh.
You know what? You know what's one of the worst feelings, Sean?
What's that?
When you have 3 dice to win a game against your arch nemesis and rival.
Jesse Metcalf says,
and you lose.
I like Blood Bowl well enough, but I haven't played it since its recent re-release. I just don't have the time or money to invest in it. I miss playing in leagues, but I cannot find a way to recreate that enjoyable period in my life. Probably a 4 on the ducal scale. And yeah, I agree. It's hard to find or it can be hard to find the time for campaign play. Like I've lamented numerous times on the show, there are so many games that have league play or, competitive play like an LCG or a CCG that I would love to have the time to devote to it, but unfortunately I do not.
Not to correct you, but that's senior contributor Jesse Metcalf.
All right, well, that's going to do it for the Dukes Double Take of Blood Bowl. A 6 for me still, and staying at a 4 for Alex.
All right, finally today, a topic that Sean came up with, inspired by recent experiences, but it turns out I've had some recent experiences. 3D printing. Sean, how did this come up for you?
I don't know, Alex. So Raquel and I have been playing a bunch of Gloomhaven. We play Tuesday night. We do a scenario. Just lost this last scenario. Very, very close. It was very sad. And we pay Mariah $10 to watch Chewie, keep her out of our hair. And we've had a lot of fun with it. But, one of the things with Gloomhaven is the terrain is just okay. Don't get me wrong. You get a lot of bang for your buck in this box of Gloomhaven. There is a ton of scenarios, a ton of interesting play. I'm loving this game. I mean, we're not going to review this anytime soon, but Gloomhaven is a 6 for me. It's just, it scratches all the itches I want for a campaign style game where you're leveling up characters. It's fantastic. But the terrain is, it's just these little flat chits. And so you have these pillars, or you have shrubs, or you have these spike pits, and it's just flat, right? It's just flat. And so I said, I really would like some terrain. And I have a lot of experience making terrain for miniatures games. And I said, I'll make some terrain. And then I thought about it. I'm just like, oh man, I don't know that I want to go through that whole process. So I said, well, let me see what's out there. Maybe there are things that I can buy online. And so there were a couple of things that I did buy. For example, there are these stands that I found on Etsy. There's basically the monsters, you put them in these little stands, they're these cardboard cutouts, and then you track their life on this separate thing off the board. And so it's always hard because you're like, well, wait, does this skeleton have 3 health or 4 health? Oh, it's this one. Oh, wait, no, it's this one. So this has these little click dials that you can use to keep track of them. So you can see right there on the game board how many health this particular living bones, is technically the term, has left. And so I bought some of those. And I was looking for other terrain. I'm like, man, this can get pretty pricey if I want to do some of this stuff. And I thought, you know what? What if I got a 3D printer? I could use it for other stuff too. And maybe it's going to have some educational applications for Chewie. And then Raquel can print some stuff and whatever.
What? Wait, what?
What?
Educational implications for Chewie was the rationale?
Yeah, they use these in classrooms all the time.
3D printers?
Yes.
I feel very old right now.
Okay. Anyway, so I figured to myself, all right, well, let's see what we could do. Because I remember we first saw a 3D printer in person at ACE, Albuquerque Comic Expo, years ago. And back then, if you were going to buy them, they were super expensive. And you could buy kits to make them. I guess you could still do that now. And so we always kind of wanted to do that, and we never did. And so I looked up basically kind of the intro hobbyist printer that's reliable. It's not a lot of bells and whistles. It doesn't do multicolor stuff or anything like that. So I have a Flash Forge Finder, proud sponsor of the show. Not really. And it's good. It's really good. So here's what I've been doing with my 3D printer. I've been making Gloomhaven terrain and accessories. So one of the things I've made are a bunch of these card holders. They hold the monster decks, or the individual monster deck, and then they hold a spot for the reference sheet, basically, because otherwise it takes up a ton of table space. Basically, you cut the table space requirement in half with these things. But it was super boring to print these because they took 2.5 hours to print each or something like that. And all I did was print 6 of them. And like I said, it was just kind of boring. At first, Mariah was like, well, that's a lot of fun. But then I've started printing terrain. So we have doors, because there's just little flat things on the table. Now we have these nice, cool wooden and stone doors, and I painted those up. And we have poison gas traps, and we have little cabinets and all. I mean, I'm not there yet. I'm about a third of the way done, give or take, but it's adding already a lot to the experience. It feels a little bit more immersive having these 3D representations on the board. And I think it's something that you would appreciate to kind of upgrade that play experience, right?
Oh yeah, no doubt.
There's even ones you could do for, like, say, Battle Lore. So you can make like actual hills for Battle Lore. There's like the tents and the towns. You can make those and just add that extra, that depth to the game to make it feel a little bit more immersive. And it's really cool. So I definitely think that this terrain application for dungeon crawl games or for, any type of map based game, I think is really cool. And definitely it requires some commitment. I mean, you've got to be, you're not going to do this.
Oh no. Oh no. Come on.
Well, why not? Why not?
Because I'm a lazy bones.
Okay.
And I don't buy that many games anyway. I mean, that's your basic answer.
It does require some dedication, and it does require like planning out and trying to maximize your time. So like, I'm like, okay, I've got this 9-hour print job. So I'll do that before I go to bed Saturday night and then wake up, ready to go. And let's start the next thing. So I've only had this for at this point, a week. It came here a week ago tonight. And all weekend I was constantly printing something up and letting it run and then pulling it off as soon as it's done, putting on the next thing. It was really cool. So you have one at work, correct?
Yeah, we just got one a few weeks ago, really. And I will tell you, we have, so for folks, I'm not going to get too much into the business side as best I can. And boy, if we've gone too heavy on this, someone should probably tell me on the guild. Because I've done my best to be restrained, but it's just come up in situations. So Monochromatic Wolf launched an imprint brand, Social Sloth Games. And our first game for that is a game called Creatures and Cupcakes. It's done by Daryl Andrews, Adrian Adamescu. And it's a push your luck game, and it involves drawing cupcakes out of a bag. Well, in order to make a nice prototype for this, obviously we could have tried to get them manufactured in China and then airshipped, but that's pretty expensive. And what's going to help us in the long run is not having to do that, because we can put the filament in our 3D printer and get a batch of cupcakes baked on a 3D printer. And they came out looking actually really nice, even in fine detail. We found there's obviously some trial and error. We had a lot of cupcakes get messed up in the early going because they'd slide around on the print plate. I don't know if you've had that issue. Yeah.
No.
The small things. Have you had like really small things you've printed?
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, at least with ours, we had some issues where the print head would bump them and kind of push them in other ways, and then the whole thing's just a mess.
Huh.
So we figured out a workaround for that. It's working just fine now. But from a publisher perspective, incredibly valuable to have that as a resource where we can do print-ups of little tiny, unicorns or dragons and these little creatures that we can have as player pieces and show off what this thing might look like in a production version. It's somewhere between kind of your typical basic prototype with a meeple and little discs or whatever else we'd substitute in this case, little cubes, versus, hey, we can show you, hey, this is going to have cupcakes. Hey, this is going to have these little mythical beasts. And it's incredibly valuable from that perspective. So I'm excited to see what other applications we'll find for it going forward. But from a prototyping professional standpoint, there's a ton of use we're going to get out of this thing. Even on one project, it's already proven very valuable. So
let me just say that rather than because it's what Social Sloth is the imprint.
Yes.
So much like we say Monochromatic Wolf, I'd appreciate if you refer to it as Friendly Ferret.
Friendly Ferret. Okay.
Yes.
As opposed to Formal Ferret.
Ferret.
It's very close to Formal Ferret.
Yeah, I think you're going to have some legal issues with Formal Ferret, but that's fine. So no, I agree, because I've already kind of thought about, there's definitely potential if I'm going to ever dive back in some of the game designs I have. There's certainly some some really cool prototyping applications there. And there's also some organizational implications. I've already talked about some of the add-ons for Gloomhaven, but there are some games that don't necessarily get a wooden insert treatment. One of those is an 18xx game that I enjoy, 1846. And I've seen a bunch of different options as far as storage, but I found a whole printable solution, and I've been working on that. The downside, Alex, is that my printer is not that big. So I've had to actually cut up the designs and then glue them together, even designing different supports to help link them together. Which is fine. It probably just means that I'm going to try and sell this used and then maybe buy a new one. So that's a little bit bigger. So have you used it yourself?
I have not input a design into it.
Okay.
I've helped load filament and unload filament.
Okay.
I have not actually, though, created like a 3D design and like sent something to it. Might be something worth doing, but now we've been using it pretty constantly for prototypes, so there hasn't been space for some sort of other board gaming application with it. But there's a lot of potential for creativity with this thing. Even something at work, the toilet paper roll holder is a little wonky at work, so we're working on printing a 3D Space Invaders version of like a toilet paper roll holder.
Okay.
Yeah.
So non-board gaming related, one of the things that I'll do sometimes for lunch is I'll usually get lunch and I'll eat in my car because I want to watch something on my phone and I don't usually have headphones with me. So my old phone had a kickstand and I could just put it on top of my steering wheel and be done with it. My new case for my new phone doesn't have a kickstand, and I've been miserable because I can't quite hold it where I need it. So now
okay.
I'm going to print a little holder for it. They'll just clip onto my steering wheel and boom, problem solved.
Wow. Okay. Nice.
Yeah. But no, I haven't had any other applications for it, even though the idea was for everyone to get some kind of use out of it. Primarily it's been all game related.
Okay.
So far.
Cool.
Which not really a surprise.
No, not really. But I'm curious to see if you ever start up your games again, Schon Decision or Schon Gammon or any of those, if this comes into play.
No, just my Watergate game. That's if I'm going to work on one, it's going to be that game.
Schon Gate?
No, it's just Watergate.
You sure?
Schon Edition. Watergate Schon Edition.
Watergate Schon Edition. Watergate Sean's Revenge. Anyway.
What?
Yeah. Hey, let's go to the Guild. Guild had some thoughts on this. Evan said, I don't have a 3D printer, but I think 3D printing adds an entirely new element to board gaming. It can take a very mediocre experience and make it quite epic. For example, I love New York 1901, a game I think most people find either very run-of-the-mill or too derivative of Ticket to Ride. I fell in love with the game long before I decided to bling out my copy with 3D printed buildings. But ever since I did, they have been a huge hit. Everyone I play the game with loves them, and it really adds a lot of flavor to the experience. Being able to do stuff like this on my own rather than hope someone does something I want them to do is a big reason why I'm looking at getting a 3D printer someday. And oddly enough, Evan just posting that photo ended up selling someone on New York 1901, sold another guild member on it just by the virtue of that post. Yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah, no, it's definitely cool because you can go to Etsy and you can find a bunch of things that people have done, but there's a lot more out there as far as these 3D files, and a lot of times they're free. So like I've gotten a bunch of stuff over on Thingiverse, and Raquel too, we both spent a ton of time this weekend just kind of browsing and be like, oh, that would be cool. Like just random stuff. I don't know. It's really cool.
Well, and it's fairly inexpensive too, right? The filament is not cheap by any means, but it's also not so out of this world expensive that it's unusable.
Right. So you can get 1 kilogram of filament for about $25, and you can get in all sorts of colors. We bought like white and blue and black because like basically I want to be able to. I don't want to spend too much time painting the Gloomhaven terrain. So like when I did these shrubs, I just printed it in green, and then I did a green wash over it. So nothing fancy, but just quick and dirty, looks good. But yeah, so pretty much it's been printing almost nonstop. No, maybe not quite nonstop. But I'd say printing 12 hours a day for a week now. And I'm probably about 2/3, maybe 3/4 done with the first kilogram of white filament.
Okay.
And I've got a ton of stuff to show for it. So yeah, I think it's fairly inexpensive once you've made that initial investment into a 3D printer, which not an insignificant amount of money, but it's fun and it's cheaper than it was a couple of years ago. So
nice.
So Jesse Black said, 3D printers are great. It would appear that many small businesses have opened due to 3D printers. I've bought several game upgrades, Dead of Winter and Lords of Waterdeep come to mind, off of Pinterest that were no doubt made with a 3D printer. The more chrome, the better. And obviously I agree with that sentiment.
Well, and it makes it so that even for games that don't have a huge audience, right, that aren't, hundreds of thousands of copies out there, it makes it so you can have these customized components for them. Right. You don't have to go get these things manufactured overseas. You can have someone willing to run their machine, for a lengthy period of time, crank these things out. And so I like that it opens up the addition of Chrome to more and more games. I think that's pretty cool too, in and of itself.
So I remember back when I'd first gotten Lords of Waterdeep, and I probably played it 10, 15 times. Raquel and I had kind of just started dating. She and Mariah had moved in already. We hadn't just started dating, but she and Mariah had moved in. And I said to her, we have all these cubes for Lords of Waterdeep. You can get these really cool little tiny meeples for the game. But they're like $40. What do you think? And she's like, I don't know. I don't know that we want to do that. I mean, you can get a whole nother game for that price. And who would have thought 5 years later, we'd be getting a 3D printer almost exclusively for games. Let's be honest.
She's on board. She's totally on board.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Emil Jewel Jacobson says, I have 3D print upgrades for Merchants and Marauders, ports for tokens, Gloomhaven, replacements for chests, obstacles, and terrain. Generally, having painted miniatures giving that third dimension of the game adds to the immersion. If the game is good, it generally also deserves to have the best possible presentation while you play. And the fact that this technology is becoming more and more accessible opens up doors to a lot more people to enjoy that upgraded presentation, which I think is really cool.
Right. In fact, one of probably my most blinged out game is one of my favorites, Zolkin, the Mayan calendar. I have everything upgraded in that. I have corn from Meeple Source. I've got the resources from the Stonemaier upgraded resources. I've got painted gears. What I don't have are pegs, the little worker pegs. And I'm going to fix that now. I'm going to get little blinged out ones. I'm going to paint them up. It's going to be awesome.
Nice. Yeah. Makes total sense. I don't know what I'd do for Baseball Highlights 2045, second mention, if I, took some personal time with that printer, but I could think of some interesting things. For that. Huh. Anyway, yeah, it gets your imagination going for sure, which is a cool thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that'll do it for 3D printing as a discussion. Hey, before we go though, Sean, the rest of the top 6. Let's start off with Michael Farnbrook, or Blaine Miley, who had kind of similar ideas but done in slightly different ways. Dice, Develop, Destroy was Michael's, and Dukes, Dice, and Deliveries was Blaine's. The concept of both of these is 3Ds, 3D printing, pretty clever, pretty nice.
Very clever, yes. So Scott Bryant's? Is that? He suggested roll with the punches, obviously SteamRollers, and then all of the smacking around that you do in Blood Bowl.
There's a lot of smacking, no doubt about it. The Name Father, Steve O'Rourke, with, I think, the runner-up, at least for me this week, with Roll 3D6. Works on a lot of what levels? Obviously, SteamRollers. You roll D6 in Blood Bowl and roll 3D6. Pretty clever, as always, for my arch nemesis and rival, Steve O'Rourke.
Also, I had to roll 3d6 to win that stupid tournament game of Blood Bowl, and still lost.
And you didn't. You lost.
Doug Faust. Does he get that treatment?
Nice.
Okay.
No, that works. I like it.
Good. Excellent. He suggested Holy Roller, and I got to be honest, I'm kind of blanking on the Holy. What's the Holy for?
So, it's not in that typical sense, right? We're not talking Heaven and Nail or kind of like a monk-themed... No. Holy Roller is referring to a famous Raiders play, where one of the players literally, like, the ball is on the ground and they're just, like, rolling it along. It's a very odd football play, but it definitely fits the bill in this case. It was a cool reference. So nice job by Doug. Very clever.
Gotcha.
And then Matthew S. wraps up our top 6 with also a very clever name, Flat Turf Society. I dug that one. That one's pretty good. SteamRollers, referencing kind of the flattening of that, and of course, turf in football. Pretty nice.
Yeah. Seriously, though, if you're part of the Flat Turf Society, you gotta get your stuff together, because, come on.
Open your eyes to science.
The turf is round, so
science.
Just deal with it. All right, Alex. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. It feels weird recording in my office and not being in the dungeon of the Duchy.
It's been a while since one of us wasn't in the dungeon of the Duchy for an episode recording. Maybe when we were in Rory's condo. Yeah. Last year, that might have been the last time.
Yeah. No, that was pretty weird.
Yeah, on site at Gen Con. Okay. And on site at Dice Tower Con. It's been a while, in any case. Yeah, by the way, hey, come see me at Origins next week for folks who are listening to this. I might be very tired or busy, but come say hi to me.
And come see me at my office if you want to retain my legal services. That's going to do it for episode 177, Rolling Dice and Printing Games. Thanks again to Andrew Mason for that awesome title. Until next time, this is Sean.
And Alex.
And Duke you later, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on June 7th, 2018. Our theme music provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all the latest in the Duchy, go to DukesofDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsors, Tasty Minstrel Games, Arcane Wonders, and Game Toppers, LLC. You can check out all of TMG's titles at PlayTMG.com. Arcane Wonders find games at ArcaneWonders.com. And learn more about Game Toppers at GameToppersLLC.com. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Until then, game on!